About 2 months ago, we flew to the US, to California, and bought a $17,000 RV. Massive, massive RV. It's 2000, so it's 23 years old. And since then, we've been traveling around mostly the Midwest, I think is what it's called, here in the US. We've been trying to do it as cheaply as possible. And I've managed to find a few ways to keep my travels fairly cheap in some ways. If you've seen some of my previous videos, you'll know that the vehicle that we've purchased was actually really, really large. So one of the biggest expenses that we do have is fuel. And there's not really a way for us around it at the moment until maybe one day we'll switch to a smaller car. So that's one way that it's not very cheap. But I'm trying to keep the costs really low because the less money we spend, the more money we have to continue to travel. So my goal is to hopefully continue to travel as long as possible. So I'll share a couple of ways that I save money while we've been traveling. And the first thing is camping. So in the US, a lot of the RV campsites, they have obviously full hookups for power. They've got full hookups for water, but they can be anywhere from $30 up to $80 per night. So we are pretty self-sufficient within our van. We have a generator for power. We can charge things while we drive. We've got water. We've got batteries for lighting and that sort of stuff. So we do not need to be at an RV site. Therefore, we do free camping. So there is an application called, it's an application and a website called iOverlander. And iOverlander, people who drive across pretty much everywhere in the world, they actually upload onto this place where you can find free campsites, where you can find paid campsites, where you can find water, where you can find Wi-Fi, where you can find showers. So they have everything on there. And that is what we've been using to find our free camping sites. From the start of our journey up until now, we've only once paid for a campsite. In Nevada, we were a little bit in the middle of nowhere, and there was a state park that was close by. It was near a little reservoir, and we paid $20 to stay there for the night. They didn't have any services there or anything. We could dump our grey water and our black water, and we could fill up with fresh water. So those were the only services that they had there. Other than that, all of the camping has been free, and it's all come from iOverlander. So we have stayed in parking lots. There's Walmart sometimes will allow you to park there. Cracker Barrel will sometimes allow you to park there. There are some just side roads, wide side roads, residential side roads where you can park on the sides of the highways and rest stops. Where we are now, which is usually Bureau of Land Management land, they have a few places called dispersed camping, so you can park there. And generally, the places have been really good. They've been fairly close to where we want to go. At the Grand Canyon, we got to park directly outside of the entrance to the Grand Canyon, and that was in a free park. And same sort of thing in Zion National Park. We got to park pretty close to the entrance of the park as well for free. Some of the places are not very scenic, just side of the road, side of the highway. And then some of the places that you can camp at are actually quite scenic. We stayed at a rest stop on the side of the road, which just had a beautiful view of some of the mountains in Nevada, in Zion National Park. We found a place on the side of the road which also had really beautiful views of the hills and things like that. So it's not a bad thing to do. It's actually really, really nice. But the way that we stay sort of self-sufficient within our van is by filling up with water when possible into our van. So we have 25 gallons tank in our van to fill up with water. And we also then obviously have to dump the grey water and the black water. So the way that we do that is, again, using iOverlander. There are a fair few places that allow you, mostly petrol stations, that allow you to dump for free, so you don't have to pay. So you can dump your water there, and they provide drinking water as well that we can fill up with. And in the national parks, oftentimes there will be a dump site and a fresh water place, and that's usually included in your park fees. So while we're driving around, usually about every 2 days, we have to kind of dump the grey water and the black water and then fill up on the fresh water. And we generally haven't had to pay for that very much. There are instances where you do have to pay to dump your black water and to fill up on fresh water, and the prices for that vary a lot. So in some places we've paid $5 for dumping and filling, and then there was another place we had to pay $40 for dumping and filling. So it really does depend on where you go. But for us, it works out a lot cheaper to just have ourselves completely self-contained, and then we don't have to pay that $30 or $40 or $60 every night for a campsite where you can hook up. Because of that water situation, the way that we collect our water and the way that we have to dump our water, it is very difficult to have a shower inside of the van. So we do have a shower in the van, but if you're not plugged into the sort of camp water, or they call it city water, like into a hose, with your grey water just flowing straight out, it's really difficult to have a shower in the van. It goes through the water really quickly and it fills up your grey water tank really quickly. And then you have to find a place to dump that. So a way that we found around that is that, again, on iOverlander, they often list places where you can have a shower. So we've had showers for as little as 25 cents. We've had showers for $2.50. We've had showers for $1. And then I think the most expensive one was $12, which was at a truck stop in Las Vegas. So there's all kinds of different places. Community centers sometimes have showers. Gyms, sometimes you can go in and just pay for a casual gym entry. Campsites will sometimes allow you to shower, and so on and so on. So when we get the opportunity to go and shower, we just do it that way. So again, we're saving all that money that we would have spent on a campsite otherwise. Usually this works out totally fine. We can usually find, every 2 days we can find somewhere to dump our water. Every 2 days we can find somewhere to fill up our water. Once it got a little bit dicey when we were in a town called Sedona, which is a little bit south of Flagstaff, which is where a lot of people start their Grand Canyon journey from. So Sedona really had nothing in the actual town. Even the RV parks, they wouldn't let you go, and even if you paid, they wouldn't let you go and dump there if you weren't staying there. So we did get to the point where the tanks were really, really full. And that was a little bit worrying, because we were like, okay, well, we can't put anything else into the grey water or the black water tanks. But it worked out in the end. There was a town outside called Cottonwood. So sometimes for these free things, sometimes you do have to drive a little bit extra, but for the most part, it's maybe 10 minutes that we have to drive out to find a free dump site or, a free camping site, that sort of stuff. It has not been a huge problem. For shopping, whenever we do go shopping, we always go to Walmart when we can. So Walmart's really affordable for pretty much everything, and they also have everything. So they've got, if we need tools, if we need things for the car, like engine oil, parts for the car, if I want some stuff for my hobbies, like crochet things, they have absolutely everything. And obviously they've got food as well. I'm aware that they're probably a fairly evil corporation, but they do work out really well for us. So I do apologize for using such a potentially evil business, but they work out really well. And then another one is thrift shops. In Australia, we call them op shops. They're really, really good here a lot of the times. We went to Goodwill, and that was really, really expensive, so I didn't buy anything from them. But a lot of the other thrift stores have got really good stuff. So we bought pretty much all of our stuff from thrift stores that's in the van. So like our plates, our dishes, our knives, our forks, our bed sheets, our towels, all of that sort of stuff all came from thrift shops, and they were really, really cheap. A lot of stuff's 50 cents each. It was great. Loved it. When it comes to vehicle maintenance or repairs inside of the RV or with the actual vehicle part itself, for those, I try to do them all myself. I have the time to go onto YouTube and to actually have a look at how these things can be repaired, how to troubleshoot and all of that sort of things, because usually taking your vehicle to a mechanic or taking your vehicle to an actual RV technician, it can become quite expensive. Even just their call-out fee costs a little bit, even if you go into them. So I've managed to work out how to repair and maintain quite a lot of things myself, and that saved a lot of money. And again, I would often just get the parts from, for example, Walmart, and that's not that expensive. And some of the tools, you can pick them up from thrift shops and things like that as well, which makes it a lot cheaper. When it comes to actually seeing attractions and going to things around while we're traveling, we really do choose where we really want to go. So if it is somewhere we have to pay to enter, we make sure that we really consider whether we actually want to go there or whether there's something else that we can see that you do not have to pay for. So for example, in Las Vegas, we really didn't pay for hardly anything. I wanted to go to the Strip, and I took the monorail around. Had a bit of a look that way. It was great. Really, really affordable. Just walked through some of the casinos and had a look at all those sorts of things. Didn't really pay to go into anything. We have a card called America the Beautiful, which is for all of the federal parks across the US. So that costs $80. Otherwise, what you'll be doing is you'll be paying $35 each time you enter a park. So because we're going to be visiting all the parks on the way, it actually ends up being a little bit cheaper to get that America the Beautiful card. Some of the other things that we do in terms of going into parks as well is sometimes if you cycle into a park or you walk into a park rather than driving, your fees drop as well. So those are for the state parks. For example, a vehicle going into a state park might cost you $15 if you're not from the state. But if you cycled or you walked in, it might cost you $5. So we've done that before. We very recently went to a place called Snow Canyon near St. George in Utah. To drive in would cost you $15, but there was a car park right outside. We parked there, took our bikes, and then we just cycled through, and that cost us $5. Same sort of thing at Zion National Park. So the parking inside of Zion National Park fills up really quickly, and there is paid parking directly outside of the national park, which costs $30 a day, which is almost the same cost as going into the park. So I decided that we didn't want to do that. We didn't want to pay $30, so we drove just till we could get to a free parking spot. We hopped on our bikes and then biked back into Zion National Park because we've got time. So we can, and it's nice to do exercise. Zion National Park was a very scenic area anyway. So we managed to save $30 on that instance. So $30 for parking. Because the car is also so big, sometimes parking is difficult. So if we need to park further away, we do have the bicycles that we can just bike to where it is we want to go. In terms of So the last point is in terms of using power, so instead of going to the parks and actually paying to hook up to power and paying to hook up to water, oftentimes while we're driving, we actually have a battery inside of the RV. We can plug that into the RV, and while we're driving, it charges that, and then we can charge all of our things as well. So we can basically charge while we're driving. I have a very small need for power. I use my phone, and then sometimes I use my laptop, but if I'm running out of power for my laptop, I could also go into the library, whereas for my other half, he's constantly using power. So that does make it a little bit more difficult because sometimes we have to run the car to be charging things while we're parked up. So it's not ideal, but it ends up being still a lot cheaper than going to the park. So those are all the ways that I have been saving money in the US. So this is obviously during 2023. We're almost at the end of the year. So some of these things may not apply into the future, or they might not have applied in the past. But this is just some stuff that I've done to save money while we've been traveling. So I'm hoping that if this reaches anybody else out there who's in a similar situation to me, and you're thinking that you would like to save as much money as possible so you can continue to travel as well, then feel free to follow me, or just let me know if you have other ways that you save money while you're traveling. I will upload another video when I can.